Hello and welcome back to Season 7 of MRX Lab Podcast, the show from FlexMR where this year we're on a mission to share inspiring stories, tips and tricks about how you can increase customer salience in your business. To help me do that, I'm thrilled to have Rupesh Patel join me today. Rupesh, welcome, the winner of the pitch battle at the Customer Salience Summit back in October. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. It was an honour. I still haven't received my trophy or anything. But,
I'm sure it's in the post.
It's in the post, yeah.
I'm sure it is. So to kick us off, let's think about customer centricity, if we may. What does customer centricity mean to you, and is it important?
Look, of course it's important. Of course it's important to any organisation selling whatever products and services that they might do. My angle is slightly different because for me, I think when people think about customer centricity, they're thinking, right, how is everyone within the organisation going to be looking at the end consumer and thinking about how they can best achieve the success with them? I'm going to say for me, where it starts is everyone within that organisation, how are they treating their stakeholders as customers?
Okay.
Right? So if everyone is working together and going, right, I'm the legal department, the finance department, whatever it is, and they're all considering themselves as products that they provide to each other, and that their customers are the people within the organization, then eventually that matrix then means that everyone will then think about customer centricity and the end user. Okay. So for me, if businesses and organizations can think about each other within as customers, it will eventually trickle down to everyone thinking about the end user.
So what you're saying there is if we're all thinking about each other as customers, so almost living a customer mindset day in, day out,
yeah,
then your theory is if we're all behaving like everyone's a customer, we will therefore treat every decision as though it's for a customer.
Exactly.
Okay. So let's just hang on that for a little bit then. If I said a culture of customer, would that be more accurate?
I think so. I think that is a behavior that each individual will have. If I'm treating everyone around me as a customer, I will then make sure that when everyone around me is thinking about each other as a customer, that whatever our collective goal is, we'll eventually deal with that as well. So yes, that's what, for me, customer centricity is. Okay,
I like that. I like that thinking. It's a different way of thinking it. And who owns that challenge? Culture of customer in a business, that's a big thing, right? Does anyone own culture?
No, it doesn't. It's got to come from the top at some point. At some point, someone from the top does have to embed that behavior. But also, we can start working on changing culture as individual elements within a business. So if your finance department, your legal department, you as a insight department, marketing, whatever the sales departments are called in your area, are all thinking like that, you can work in your little teams to do that, and eventually those above will recognize that and then command that as part of their culture. You know, we've all seen loads of organizations in their brand purpose. Which brand purpose doesn't have some sort of, we put customers at the heart of whatever. It's when that goes down as a brand purpose that then everyone can rally around. So look, it's important that large organizations have leaders that want to bed that in. Naturally, they will do that because it sounds good. And the number of LinkedIn posts that I see from senior leaders going, I've left this organization and it was great to embed a customer, blah, blah, blah. And they're always talking about that. They manifest it in their brand purpose, but then everyone's got to rally around it.
So I'm going off script, I'm afraid. I'll warn you. So in our summit, we talk about the customer delivery gap. So picking up on that point, there's a statistic that we use. About 3/4 of CMOs state that customer centricity is important. Your point that embedding it in a promise, the values, is the easy part. But only 14% of them think that that's a hallmark of their brand. So massive sort of say-do gap almost. Only 14% believe they're doing it, and yet 75%, 73%, I think it is, think it's critical. Why do you think that gap exists? If we're saying it and putting in those brand values, how does it not manifest itself in the business?
Look, there's been a history over the last 10 to 15 years where there's been a lot of pressure, especially on organizations trying to meet their sales target. We see it in marketing press, right? The demise of brand advertising and the rise of direct marketing and sales. That's a reflection of the pressures that are on the businesses, not thinking about the long term, thinking about the short term. And that then has a trickle-down effect on customer centricity, because consumers, at the heart of things, aren't making decisions today. Yeah, it doesn't really matter about how much your product life cycle is, or how long people go B2B takes a lot longer, and it doesn't matter. No one's thinking about your brand today, and you putting a piece of comms out there, they're not going to go, let me stop everything I'm going to do today. I'm going to go and buy that product. But yet businesses are expecting that to come through in sales numbers. So I think it's really important for us to think about the pressures that those senior leaders have that have changed over the last 15 years. So with that means that customer centricity becomes quite difficult to implement. So you can't implement it because you're going for the bottom dollar, you're going for a sales tactic. So you have to work on, how is it that I'm going to please my end consumer and give them the feelings that I need them to have prior to that sale? Which means that it's just really tough to do that. So yes, there's going to be a gap, but I can understand the pressures that these leaders have.
So that the point there is, it's the short-term financial pressure which brings about short-term tactics, sales tactics, marketing tactics, whereas the building culture of customer is more of a long-term end game.
Yeah.
And in the last 15 years, you were saying that's kind of probably changed. Yeah. And by focusing more on the short term, we're creating barriers, essentially, in behavior. Yeah, exactly. So give me an example, if you can, of where you've had customer insight influence a big decision or change something or changed a decision maker's mind about something.
Look, for me, there's a few projects where we've done in the past where the thing that's really hit home and made people change their decision that they already had was by making sure that we elevated the insights to be memorable. Yeah, so the insights that we deliver, we make sure that we land them in a memorable way. So almost like a marketing campaign, right? It's not necessarily the insight that you produce and the product that you produce, but it's the way that you deliver it. So can you deliver it in a way that's different to the way other people around the business are landing things? So one of the tactics that we use is we use WhatsApp and videos. When you're using WhatsApp and videos, you've got an end user who sees an insight on a video, and they're like, finance haven't sent me anything on a video, legal haven't sent me anything on a video, but Insight have. So you've disrupted the way that you've influenced them, and that then gets you the engagement, and your message is able to then cut through. And that's probably been the best way that we've been able to influence leaders in making the decisions that they've made, rather than the actual content itself. You know, the content itself changes. It is what it can be different month to month, but it's not the content, because we're all good at that. Especially people in our industry, we know how to collect the right insights. We know what methods to use. It's about that delivery, because the delivery is what then is memorable enough to then change decisions.
I love the fact you're bringing memory into that. I mean, the heart of customer service is a memory structure. You know, how do we make sure the customer is at the forefront of that? That's about memory, right? And the culture of customer we talked about before, that's about memory as well, ultimately. So I love the fact you're bringing memory in there. What is it about the WhatsApp that makes it memorable? Because you also reference in there almost competition. You see yourself in competition with other departments and how they land things. So what is it about memory, and where's the competition bit coming from?
The competition is going to be there, right? And let's take a leader in a business. Not only are you competing with other departments that are trying to get their attention, but you're also competing with their life, right? They've got kids to pick up from school. They want to have a break and watch TV. They've got that side of their life as well. So you're competing for their share of mind, right? And you've got 24 hours a day to do that. And I'm not saying reach out to them after closing hours, but that's in their mind, right? They might have watched Netflix the night before in their share of mind, or while they're going to lunch, they're thinking about what's happening in that show. And we're specialists at this in our industry, right? We're the ones that can get into consumers' minds. Now, if you're treating your leader as a consumer, you are competing with their full 360 mindset all the time. So what do you need to do? You need to understand what media are they consuming. Yeah. So when they come to work, they're parking their car, going through the front desk. They are maybe listen to a podcast on the way, and then they sit down. They talk to their other colleagues. You've got all that space to grab their attention. So how can we leverage that? And guess what? Marketeers do exactly this analysis when they're trying to reach their end consumer. They come to us a lot of the time to ask, where's who listens to the radio? What's the media consumption of XYZ audience? Well, now we've got a senior leader or a stakeholder. Consider them, consider their environment and how you can get into that. Now you know that they're sitting behind a laptop and they open their emails at 9 o'clock in the morning and there's 300 emails. You know that they're filtering with the most important person, reading those ones. So you know how that behavior goes, because especially as you're doing the same. So for me, it's really important that you understand that and you understand how you're going to disrupt that media behavior that they have and their day. And that's when the innovation comes. That's when you can be exciting. That's when you can go, oh, she or he WhatsApped one of their colleagues, and they seem to be making decisions there on WhatsApp. Back in the day, go to the smokers' corner, yeah. That doesn't necessarily happen now, or that person cycles on the weekend, whatever it might be. Really thinking about that and how to deliver the insights in that context, I think just works wonders.
I mean, it's amazing the way you're describing it as well. It is like the way marketers should think about their audiences, their target audiences, their target customers. And the way you're describing it there really brings to life our lives as decision makers, right? As people in business.
Yeah.
And the way you're describing it means we have to think about the way we deliver the insight, not just the way we collect the insight.
Yeah, and look, those insight people that work with marketeers in their organizations, we're often the ones telling them about marketing academia, right? So I often refer to a Binet and Fields 60-40, and I say, hey guys, you've got a campaign going. Think about the 60% of your time on long-term brand building, whatever, 40% on short-term, and then you go back to your desk and you think, actually, my insight project is the product, and I need to treat it like a brand. Therefore, when I'm selling in that insight project to influence them, 60% of my marketing communication strategy should be on long-term brand building and 40% on making transactional changes today. So what then that leads you on to is another piece of marketing academia on distinctive brand assets. And you go, oh, I know a lot about distinctive brand assets. I've seen organizations. And so, okay, what is it that makes a brand have a good distinctive logos, brand names, specific visuals, sounds. These are really good, powerful, distinctive brand assets for consumer goods. Well, let's apply that to an insight project. Mm-hmm. So we make sure that if you've got a max diff messaging hierarchy, for example, or a conjoint, whatever, rubbish brand names, yeah, let's call it, one of the messaging hierarchy tools, I called it the Ham project. And then the other one, I called it a Be Me project. And I just put a logo. I told the insight partner, let's have a logo for it. Let's have a sound for it. Create that distinctive brand asset, and you've applied marketing academia to your project, and you've got a promotional strategy. So it's really important to do that. That's one of the things for me that is super important to influencing people, because now you're creating salience for your product. So yeah, it's exciting to apply that. And it's the fun part, right?
Yeah, I love. I mean, just listening to you then, I mean, it's fantastic. But thinking about it as 60%, 40%. 60% is long term. So no longer is that insight just about that short term decision, which is often what we're focused on, right? Influencing decisions. I want that insight to change a decision. So normally that's my focus, but actually you're saying that's 40% of the focus. 60% of it should be the long-term asset. Now let's take that long-term asset as being the customer or the culture of the customer, going back to the first discussion that we had. So 60% of our focus should be on that. Then the second thing you've said is talk about the brand assets, the sound, the image, the assets of that. And the assets of that are in that project or in the way you deliver that project. So if it's video, for example, I guess that's giving sound and emotion in a different way to a statistic. But if it is a statistic, then it's got a different characteristic to it.
Yeah, exactly. And, applying that to our teams, it's when you have a particular project and someone in your team is owning that, their face being part of that project, is, it's amazing to say that. Because over time, someone will apply that face with the decision they've made, right? So let's take a messaging hierarchy piece of work, right? And then maybe it's based on features and whatever it might be. Over time, what you'll find is in a year's time, 2 years' time, someone will say, that person in your team, they helped us make this decision. And I think the project they did was something called the whatever. And you can see that you've created that chain where they've recognized the face to the decision they've made, the brand logo to the decision that they've made. And suddenly you've got a product that then you may redo or whatever, and you're bringing that investment into your business, into your insight team. Which
again just changes the way we're thinking about it, because we're not talking about briefing forms on projects anymore. We're now talking about memory of your team, memory of team members and projects. And even if they haven't got the salience of the customer in their mind all the time, so the decision maker isn't necessarily even thinking about what the customer is, they have at least got customer insight and memory structure around that. So they know where to go to get the customer, which I guess, again, shortcuts that salience point.
Yeah. And also think of it from how marketeers sell their FMCG products or whatever it is. They're in market all the time, right? There's out-of-home adverts, TV adverts constantly throughout the year. They're not thinking, actually, most of the sales of their product happen during Black Friday or Christmas, right? They'll stay in the market with broadcast marketing all throughout the year. And then when it comes to their sales periods, they'll go hard with their sales message, right? Okay, well, let's apply that to the insight world. You do the project in your pre-Christmas, you need to go and do a piece of work, and that's the project. Okay, well, the project's done. You've landed the insight. You've changed the decision for something happening in January, February. Okay, well, March, April, May, what's the noise we're going to make in the market? How are we going to keep that project salient throughout the year until the next cycle comes? Have we sat down and thought about what that hum is throughout that year? Maybe it's resending some of the assets out again. Or maybe it's post this project, we changed the business, this is what happened. Here's the logo of how that business decision was made. Maybe it's we're going, starting the conversation for the next year's project a lot earlier. Maybe it's even sending that project out to someone who wasn't your primary stakeholder and selling it in elsewhere. And that's what FMCG and consumers do all the time. They are selling their product elsewhere. They are talking about it loud and proud. So you have that strategy, which is what's the always on communications approach and what's the now approach, and how are we going to sell it in at the most important time of the year. And that together is exactly what marketeers do to their consumers. So we'll do the same to marketeers.
Wonderful. I mean, you've just brought to life what brand salience is from a from a marketer's, brand manager's, customer perspective, it's the fact that they've got to have the brand structure there. And then when they're making the decision at Christmas, they're bringing to forth that moment, the messaging that you need to influence the decision. And then you've switched that to what we talk about customer salience, which is how do we make the hum, love that, the hum of the customer through the year, so that when we're ready to make a decision about Christmas or whatever it is in the business, we're ready to punch through that influence at that right time. So when we're making that decision, we're thinking in the right way.
Top of mind.
Top of mind. Top of mind. You're doing my job for me. Top of mind. Thinking about marketing strategy again and the theory of it, where does target audience come into this then for you? If we're thinking internally of customers, how do we describe target audience?
That's a really good question. If you again go, I'm a big fan of marketing academia, as you know. You're breaking that audience down, and you're breaking that audience down into your different segments. And we have obviously working across the business with your peers and people. Then you've got your leaders, and I think what we miss is we go for the obvious, right? That person gave the brief. That person asked us for the work. Give them back what we need to give them. However, that's again not how marketeers work. All right, marketeers might say they do that and they target people and they go follow them around the internet and whatever. They don't really, right? They invest in TV advertising, they invest in radio advertising, they invest in out-of-home advertising. Those they do. They're not hitting target markets. They are hitting as many people as they possibly can. Yeah, let's do the same, right? Let's do the same. If you've got an insight project that is specifically targeted at a particular stakeholder and a particular target, and you obviously please them, do their thing. But once you're done, it's out. You broadcast that insight as wide as you possibly can, because you never know. Because that is your strategy, that in 2-3 months' time, when someone else needs you, you are top of their mind. So for me, targeting is a very small part of what we need to do when we're thinking about our comm strategy. I think we need to focus and our energy on do the best for that audience, tailor it, but then let's go broadcast. Wait for the signal. You may get a signal from somewhere else and go, oh, I'm interested in that, but I need it tailored to me. And in my career, that's happened a lot, where I'm working on something for marketing, and then suddenly someone in the sales team or on the front line has gone, oh, I heard blah, blah, blah. And then you just tailor that and go for them. But it happens so often, and it's super important. And I stress this because when you're delivering something for a particular audience, they can keep it for themselves and translate it in their own language, when you don't know how useful that could be to another target audience until you shout about it.
I love the broadcast bit. Can I challenge you on the target audience for the tailoring bit? I mean, do you spend time thinking about how different audiences need insight in the business? Do you think about that and what they need, what decisions they might have, what messaging might land, what brand assets might influence them? Do you spend time thinking about that, or do you just spend time thinking about the broadcast bit?
I think you have to balance it, right? Where you still have to stay true to your brand, as in your product. Your distinctive assets must stay. What benefit you're providing one stakeholder to another could be different. And think of it exactly in the same way as media, creative, and message. So you're going to deliver the insight in a different way. Yes, you've got a broadcast media strategy, as it were, but you've also got, well, this person is out and about in the front line, going to retail stores, and this person is a marketer and sits behind a desk in an office. Yeah, so your media approach is going to be slightly different. You're going to communicate to them differently in different places. Tonally is quite different as well. Frontline people are meeting consumers all the time, and they've got more of a colloquial way of communicating, whereas maybe some other departments might be putting in there. They talk in the business world. They talk in a really convoluted way, and that's just them. So yes, the way you land the benefit, you would say something slightly different. For example, here's a piece of conjoint analysis, and it's called blah. It will really help you choose which products and things you put on a billboard or in a marketing campaign. Whereas the someone who's working in the more commercial side, well, this is the ones that you need to display in your retail stand or whatever it might be. And then you go, well, creatively, how do I then apply that into the way I communicate? Well, I'll just go down and I'll talk to them. So think of it in those three ways. And yes, delivery is different.
Yes, you are still tailoring the delivery to the target audience, but your key point here is the broadcast really is key. Do not get the rabbit hole of the target audience so much that we forget the broadcast piece.
Yeah, exactly.
So thinking about insight and skills in insight, the way you're talking sounds very different to, I guess, your grad scheme.
Yeah.
When you're in a grad scheme and that. So what skills are important for a customer insight team today?
It is not knowing the core part of what makes the insight. The product is not something that we need to engineer. There are plenty of people in our business who can manufacture insights. For me, we now need to move into that space of being best in class, of being salespeople, right? We need to, as an industry, we need to sell our product in the best possible way. And when it comes to sales, as we know, there's two layers. There's building, you need the marketing to build that salience, to build that emotion, and then we need to transact. We need to do it both in the short term and in the long term. So we have to move ourselves away, trust us. We've done years and years of great quality work. We've got some real intelligent people in our industry who create great products. But today, we need to move into that sales environment. And it's in our blood as insight people to be accurate, to be specific, and to ensure that we're giving the best product. But I think we're in a time now where we're done with that, right? I've not met someone in our industry that can't do that. So I trust everyone. And actually, I think our stakeholders, our clients, our customers do trust us. That's why we've been given the jobs that we've been given. But how do we go and now sell that in? And that's where we should be leaning on all the theories that we see around sales and marketing, whatever they might be, whether it's a 60-40, whether it's the distinctive brand assets or whatever it might be, apply them and sell them in. So for me, influencing our stakeholders, but that comes after. You're not going to influence them if you haven't got the right marketing communications approach to your product. We can apply the 4 Ps if we want, right? Price, let's be honest, our industry we're so fragmented, and the products price is pretty down. It's low, right? We're not doing much with that. Product, we've nailed it. Everyone trusts us. So promotion and place are the ones that we have to land, and we have to make sure that we're accessible and that we are promoting everything we do in the best way possible.
So we have to become the thing that we work for, which is sales and marketing.
Yeah. I always say this to insight partners. I'm like, look, if you're not marketing yourselves very well, then why would I come to you for marketing advice? Yeah. You think back at like 10, 15 years ago, you get an email, you get a cold call. You're like, I'm a client-sider, so getting a cold call and you can see the difference. You see people who have really I've never heard of. And they're phoning me and they're like, I'm like, but I never heard of you. What do you do? Why do you do it? But then some insight partners I'm always seeing them around. I want to find out about them because I see them everywhere. So they've created good. So I'm like, hold on, they've clearly got a department who are marketing themselves. So if I'm going to take advice, I'll take it from them. And then when it comes to the actual work that actually they do and that actually adds value, they're talking to me in a relevant way. They know about my business and they're messaging it to me in a relevant way. It seems very simple, but I think it's super important that we move into that space.
So this is the really hard question. Just finally for our audience, if there's one thing that we'd like our listeners to take away from today's episode, what do you think that would be?
Brand your insight projects. I don't need to tell you how to do that. Brand them. Stop using our techie words, conjoint, max diff, whatever. Call it the orange project or the whatever it might be, right? Like just give it a sexy name. Yeah. And then you'll trust me, a year down the line, someone is going to say to you, can we do this again? And you're like, hold on. I just made that word up. Yeah. I just designed that logo myself. And now you're asking me for that thing. It'll give you that good feeling. It'll give you that really cool feeling. Like,
so we brand the product, brand the insight. And then we think about the brand assets. I guess that comes naturally from that point.
Yeah.
So I think that's brilliant way to end it. Sums up a lot of our discussion today, which is branding the insight. I think it's been a great discussion. Thank you, Rupesh, and congratulations again for winning the summit pitch battle. And thank you also to the audience for tuning in too. We may be out of time today, but we'll be back next month with another episode with more inspiring stories about how to improve customer insight and increase customer salience success in your business. Until then, I've been your host, Paul Hudson, and this has been the MRX Lab.